All right, well, let's just go ahead and get started. I know Jeff and others will be joining, hopefully. So welcome everyone. This is the Lower American River Advisory Committee virtual tour, a portion of the Lower American River that staff has put together for you all. This is not an official meeting of the advisory committee, but I would like to start by taking a roll call of just committee members. And if you could speak up, remember to unmute your phone if you have any questions or anything. And then as we get into the virtual tour, I would just like to ask that you hold all comments and questions during the tour until such time as the question and comment period comes up. After each segment of the tour, there will be opportunities for questions and comments. And there's 6 of those, so we'll have 6 opportunities for questions and comments during the tour. Also, if you have a question or a comment and you don't want to forget it, you could use the chat function in the Teams. Just write it down in chat and we will have folks monitoring that. And then we can address the questions and or comments during the break between each tour segment. And then I just like to once again say, please stay muted until such time as you have a question or a comment or are called upon to ask it. So, and then also remember to mute yourself once you've commented. And I just like to say, I'm just really pleased that all of you are able to join us today. Looks like we have a pretty good turnout. According to my calculations, and Sean, we have over 42, almost 50 folks on the tour today. So that's great. And so with that, I will start out with a quick roll call of committee members. And recognizing that the committee will not be taking any action today, there is nothing the committee will be voting on. This is just a tour for them and as well as public folks who are interested and staff. So with that, Mr. Cerna, Supervisor Peters, Supervisor Natoli.
Here.
Great. Councilmember Harris. Julia Burrows for Mayor Daryl Steinberg.
Here.
Great. Don Terry. Kevin Thomas. Matt Almay for Department of Finance representative. Jennifer Lucchese.
Here.
Stephen Green.
Here.
Corey Brown. And Cassie Gilson.
Here.
Great. So welcome, committee members. And I'm assuming we'll have a few more committee members joining on at some point during the tour. If they do come on, I will recognize them, or they're welcome to recognize themselves. But for now, I just like to turn it over to Kara, our staff, committee staff, as well as staff at the Wildlife Conservation Board, to kind of update us and kind of explain how we're going to proceed today. Kara?
Okay, thank you, John. First, I want to take a minute or two to just share a few things about the program to give a little background and context for folks that might be learning about the Lower American River Conservancy program for the first time today. So the program started in 2017 with the passage of Assembly Bill 1716, and the purpose of this bill was to bring a state partner to the parkway that would work with the county and other stakeholders to expand and improve the quality of the parkway's public resources, spanning from its natural resources to recreational and educational resources. And over the last 3 years, the Wildlife Conservation Board, in administering the program, has not only hosted the 2 mandated meetings of the advisory committee each year, but we have advertised 3 competitive grant solicitations, funded 8 projects, including the development of the Natural Resources Management Plan for the Lower American River Parkway. And today we bring you all our second tour of the Parkway. And I know firsthand the effort that has been put forth by many to see this program move forward and to be meaningful for the millions of people that enjoy the Parkway every year. And I'm very honored to be part of it for the achievements that have been made, the coordination and outreach that has been a focus of our advisory committee meetings, and which is being extended through the tour today. And also because the Parkway was my backyard growing up, and it holds a very special place in my heart, and I know it does for many people. And I view today's tour as WCB's commitment to be that state partner in the Parkway, not just for the county, but for all of you with us today. And so, you know, today's tour is brought to you not just by WCB, but by many of our partners. And so, you know, they will be acknowledged during the tour. And with that, I hope that you sit back, relax, and enjoy this virtual tour. And if Jeff Harris is still not joined, I guess we'll just carry on, John.
Yeah, I just want to acknowledge that Don Terry is with us. So Councilmember Terry is joined on. And before we start, I would like to ask committee members if you have any questions or comments that you'd like to make at this particular time. And Supervisor Cerna, did you also join?
I did.
Great. Well, welcome.
Thank you.
I see Rich O'Neill has his hand up, John.
Oh, Rich O'Neill?
Oh, yes. What was the assembly bill that you passed in 2017?
That was Assembly Bill 1716, which created the Lower American River Conservancy Program Act.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Great. All right, well, let's get going.
Okay, and you know, I will give one little tip out, and just as Rich here has raised his hand with a question or comment, it's advised that if anybody has a question or comment, you raise your hand, and then once you're called upon, do remember to lower your hand. And with that, I'm going to mute myself and turn it over to the video. Welcome everyone to the second tour of the Lower American River Parkway, brought to you by the Wildlife Conservation Board for the Lower American River Conservancy Program. This production was made possible with the helping hands of several of our partners located right here in the Parkway. Without their support, this virtual tour would not be possible. And now, let's head out to the river. For those of you new to the Lower American River Parkway, it is located from Hazel Avenue downriver to the confluence with the Sacramento River, and our tour today will feature the middle reach of the Parkway, and we begin our tour at the upriver end at Riverbend Park. Right now we are looking upriver, however the tour will continue downriver, and Riverbend Park is located on the river left side of the Parkway, which means when traveling downriver, it is located on the left-hand side. And before moving on downriver, the American River Parkway Foundation would like to introduce you to a very special site located right here at Riverbend Park.
In 2008, the Campfire Girls wanted to sell their property, which was a in-holding within the Riverbend area. The County of Sacramento Parks Department purchased the 10-acre spot for $20,000. In 2009, the District Rotary 5180 and the American River Parkway Foundation entered into an agreement to rehab the entire facility. It was used for paintball, there was concrete, it was tagged, it was disgusting. Since that time, over the last 10 years, we have put in roughly $700,000 into the facility. That includes accessible walkways, a brand new amphitheater, shade structures, new picnic tables, done a number of cleanups, trimming of the trees, walkways, etc. And then the most exciting part to all of this was in 2016, the American River Parkway Foundation entered into an agreement with Sacramento County Office of Education. And from there, the Riverbend Outdoor Education Program has been born. And since that time, we have served over 9,000 children. And all of these children are from Title I schools between the grades of 3rd and 5th grade. For so many of these children, they have never been to the Parkway. They have never experienced the American River Parkway. They thought when they drove in on the bus, they were in some forest and something. And for them to be able to see how pristine this area is, to explore nature, to see the river, it's a first for a lot of them. You know, if it wasn't for this program, these children would not be coming out to the Parkway, and these children are the future of Sacramento and the future of the American River Parkway.
Carter, this is Don Natoli.
Yeah, go ahead, Don.
Yeah, I just wanted to give another shout out to the foundation and to the Rotary District. Over the years, I'm sure some of my colleagues as well have been kind of kept apprised of this. And as Diana outlined, it was in pretty poor condition and had fallen to some disrepair. But working with certainly Liz and folks with the county parks and in a couple items that came before our board, there's been a tremendous investment made there. And I think, as pointed out, the opportunity for young people from throughout the county, maybe even beyond, to get a chance to experience the Parkway, to see an area that's still has, riparian components to it, but to really get a chance to experience that. I think there's, the benefits are just multiple. And I guess what I want to ask Liz, wasn't there a potential day, either day camp or overnight camp possibility built into all this, or has that gone by the wayside?
No, we are actually working on that right now. And in the spring of 2021, you'll be seeing some more improvements completed by the American River Parkway Foundation in partnership with our department, including a restroom facility out there that will help facilitate day camp use.
Great, yeah, and it just came to me. I recalled that, but anyway, I just wanted to kudos to folks, and certainly I'm glad you were able to feature and highlight it today. And it's required a tremendous amount of work and I think commitment. But again, the foundation, Parks Department, and the Rotary have all been strong partners. There may be others as well that I'm not aware of that weren't mentioned here, but just kudos. And that's all I wanted to add. Thanks.
Okay, I think Carl, you have your hand up. Carl Samonson, do you have a question or comment about the Riverbend area? I don't see you're on mute, but I don't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Oh, now we can hear you. Hello.
Okay. I had my setup wrong. I was just wondering if a member of the public wanted to hold an event there. Do we just contact the Parks Department? And is there any regulations or things we need to follow to know to hold an event? Obviously, it'd be for kids.
Yes, you would reach out to Sacramento County Regional Parks, and we have a permitting process for all of our facilities.
Okay, thank you, Liz.
Okay, and Catherine Perkins.
Hey, yeah, Kat Perkins here. I work at the Water Forum. Just wanted to comment that it's cool to learn more about this area. I wasn't aware of the educational use here, and just want to let folks know there's a couple past Water Forum projects, river habitat restoration that happened at Riverbend in the past, and there's more work planned. Also, Cordova Creek is just a little ways, I guess, east of this site, and there was a naturalization done there a few years ago, and now planning for more naturalization. The project that's funded by the Lower American River Conservancy. So, yeah, awesome stuff.
Yeah, thanks, Catherine. And, I will mention that the Soil-Borne Farms area and the American River Ranch, as well as more upstream sites, will be featured for our third tour of the Parkway that'll likely be next year. So we will not be missing out on those sites. They'll just be coming up next year.
Very cool.
Okay, and I think if that is it for questions and comments for now, I will play the tour. As we leave this wonderful and growing outdoor education site, we'll head out to the river and go downstream. As we travel along the river corridor, I will provide a very high-level overview of opportunities that are being identified in the Lower American River Natural Resources Management Plan that is being prepared by the county in coordination with federal, state, and local agencies. For example, the gravel bar on the left is being evaluated by the Water Forum for salmonid habitat restoration for both rearing and spawning habitat. And before we get too far downriver, I do want to point out that you see homes on the right abutting the river, and this is because we are above the federal levee system, which begins a little downriver in the Arden Bar area. We are now approaching the Harold Ritchie Memorial Bridge, which is one of two pedestrian bridges that cross the river along the middle reach of the parkway. On the left is another opportunity for gravel augmentation for spawning salmonids, and to the right is an existing gravel augmentation site completed by the Water Forum, which promotes wild spawning of salmon and steelhead. Within the Arden Bar area, we have the William B. Pond Recreation Area, and farther downriver is the Harrington Access Area. Below us is a site known as the Clay Banks, which is part of William B. Ponds and is also part of this beautiful braided channel, which the Parkway Plan refers to as intermittent backwater ponds and depressions, since this site was created by a gravel mining quarry that was abandoned in 1976. We will now head over to the Cassis property on the left for a surprise presentation provided by Carl Samuelson and Kurt Hildebrand with Aerial Image Systems.
The Cassis property in Rancho Cordova is one of the last sizable areas of open space left along the American River Parkway. This property lies between the south side of the river and Folsom Boulevard, just to the east of Bradshaw Road, across the river from William B. Pond Park and adjacent to Riverbend Park. The property has two very distinct sections, consisting of the upper portion and the lower basin, separated by an approximately 20-foot embankment. The upper portion is primarily open field, while the lower basin resides within the 100-year floodplain and contains the remnants of an old walnut orchard, as well as a number of heritage oak trees. This property has a long and storied history. For thousands of years, the Valley Nisenan people called this land home, and there are known and documented archaeological sites on or around the property. In 1844, this land was part of the 35,000 plus acres granted by the Mexican government to William Alexander Leidesdorff via the Rancho Rio de los Americanos land grant. Leidesdorff was one of the earliest biracial black U.S. citizens in California and one of the founders of the city of San Francisco. In the latter part of the 19th century, this area was some of the first ranches and orchards established in what is now Rancho Cordova. The Pony Express passed through the property on the way into and out of Sacramento. This land is home and refuge to many different animals, including raccoons, eagles, deer, bobcats, foxes, hawks, owls, coyotes, and many more of the parkway's wild residents. The endangered Swainson's hawk has been spotted in the area recently, and fishermen routinely find their way to the base of the property to stand quietly in the pursuit of salmon, steelhead trout, striped bass, and American shad. The Casas heirs are in the process of trying to sell this property, and the city of Rancho Cordova is poised to let Trumark Homes, an out-of-town developer, wipe out this critical refuge in order to build million-dollar homes with river views. This would be a travesty and a huge lost opportunity to preserve the history and ecology of the area. We believe that the upper 21 acres of the Casas property adjacent to Folsom Boulevard should be developed, but that the lower 20-acre floodplain portion of the property overlooking William B. Pond and Riverbend Parks must be preserved. Preserving this land would save this irreplaceable recreational, educational, and natural resource for the citizens of Rancho Cordova and all of the Parkway's thousands of annual visitors.
Okay, do we have any questions or comments about the Casas property? Or anything else we might have flown over? Kevin Thomas, why don't you go ahead? I saw your hand up first. I see your mic's off, but I'm not hearing you, Kevin.
Sorry, is that better?
Yes, it is.
I was just wondering, on the Casas property, have the owners been approached about purchase, or are they just wanting to sell to the highest bidder? I mean, for conservation.
Yeah, that's a great question. I'm not too sure about the, where they're at with the selling the property. Carl, might you know anything about that, or maybe Donald Terry with the city of Rancho Cordova?
So this is Carl here, and I don't know if anybody specifically has approached the Casas heirs about this. I actually saw Barbara riding by my house today on her horse, and I was considering approaching her myself, but I thought maybe I should talk with some others before I kind of jumped in. But as far as I know, I don't know if they've been contacted.
So the first thing I would say is I thought this was a non-political government meeting, and having people lobbying one way or the other for something that's pending decision soon is probably not the best forum for, or in my opinion, is not the appropriate forum. That being said, I can answer the question. There is a developer that is working with the property owner and has submitted plans that are in planning and has not come to the city council. So even the wording of the city is poised to approve anything, there hasn't even been a public hearing for this item yet. That being said, I have no idea if anyone has approached the family to talk about the proposal.
Okay.
Of the 20 acres.
Okay. Well, there's an answer to your question, Kevin. And again, this presentation was included just strictly as informational item about this property that abuts the parkway. We're not taking a position. WCB and the program is not taking a position on this property. And I see another hand, Mark Berry. Do you have a question or comment?
Yes, I do. Yeah, I'm very familiar with the property. I live very close to it, and one of the unique things I think that maybe the Parkway groups and commissions there and other people would like to know is that lower basin flood that's in the floodplain. When the water rises in the Parkway, it gets like a couple of years ago when we had kind of near flood conditions. That island that you can see across the way there, Arden Island, I believe they call it, and really up to near the bottom of the Ritchie Bridge, the water was very high up there. But what that Cassis property allowed Parkway animals to do is they had a place to go to dry land. And I just know that from walking on the property, the several easements that it has already, that it's really been a refuge for wildlife, and it's sort of been the quiet piece of the American River Parkway that's been unknown. It's directly across from William B. Pond. There's a couple of rookeries right across the way, both herring and or egrets and great blue heron. And then there is the fishery aspect of it. I know they just put a salmon fishery right above that, out of that kind of washed down river towards the Cassis property in that last big water we had. So, and to my view, that Cassis property sort of completes an important part of the ecology of the American River Parkway, even though it's far less trodden and trafficked by people than, for instance, Riverbend Park. It remains an important part of the parkway just by its quiet. I even noticed during COVID, when everybody was riding their bikes on the parkway, that little piece of land was where the coyote swam across, and they went over there, and the deer swam across, just because there was so much other activity. So I just wanted to inform people who know about the parkway and care about it that acquisition of that land would be a really nice benefit to the community, since it is the last piece of sizable land that I'm aware of on the Lower American River Parkway. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. Okay, any other questions or comments? Okay, seeing none, we will continue on. As we near the end of the Arden Bar area, you will see a pond on the right side of the screen, which is known as Arden Pond. We will come back to this site, but first I want to point out the Harrington access area that is up ahead on the right where the river bends to the left. This access site has a paved parking lot and restroom and is a very easy approach to the river for people launching non-motorized boats. We will now turn around and head upriver to access Arden Pond, which is another man-made feature from the gravel mining days. This pond is separated from the river by a gravel dike and supports warm water fish such as bass. Arden Pond features a unique site that may be the only one in the parkway, and that is an ADA fishing pier. This fishing pier was constructed about 15 years ago, specifically to be a disabled fishing access site. It includes stairs as well as a paved ramp that lead users down to two separate fishing piers. This pier may look fine from afar, but after more than 15 years of inundation and fluctuating river levels, the structure has shifted, which has caused lips to form in the transitions between the paved ramp and wooden pier. These lips may not look like much, but can be barriers to people in wheelchairs and using walkers. There is also a break in the handrail very close to the pier, which is likely a sign of shear stress from the structure shifting. This pier was also designed with wooden pilings, which in time are bound to rot and deteriorate and will create unsafe conditions for all users. Seeing these signs of stress and deterioration tell us that improvements will likely be needed in the future to maintain this pier as a disabled fishing access site. As we pan over the tree canopy, we'll be looking across the greater William B. Pond area, and the Parkway Foundation will take us on a tour of what this area has to offer.
Today we'll explore the William B. Pond Recreation Area, located in Carmichael on the north side of the river. Vehicle access is at the eastern end of Arden Way, where you drive through this entrance. As you enter the William B. Pond area, you pass the Strang Volunteer Center, which is the office of the American River Parkway Foundation. The foundation's demonstration garden is beside the building and features native plants and trees meant to attract birds and other pollinators like bees and butterflies. A covered picnic table and log seating area are open for public use. You might see quail like this one scurrying in the brush, or a little guy like this on a log. Once you pass the office and garden, you come to the ranger booth. On weekends, this is usually manned, so you can pay the $5 entrance fee. If the booth is closed, visitors are required to pay their fee to the Iron Ranger, the brown machine pictured here. Regular Parkway visitors may choose to purchase an annual $50 pass from the American River Parkway Foundation website. As we drive into the park, on the right is a large unpaved parking area designated for horse trailers. We drive to the west end of the parking lot to visit the fishing pier. When crossing the trail, make sure to look in both directions for cyclists zipping by. With views over Arden Pond, the pier has a ramp allowing access for wheelchairs and walkers. Plenty of Canada geese inhabit this area year-round, although egrets like this one are commonly seen here. In winter, flocks of grebes are seen in large numbers. A covered picnic structure with 3 tables is also located at this point. Some other commonly seen creatures include coyotes, deer, turkeys, and the ever-present vultures. We leave the pier and walk along the trail heading east. Pedestrians and runners should walk and run on the left shoulder so they can see the oncoming cyclists. Note the multiple picnic tables and grills located under shade trees in this area, creating great spaces for group and family gatherings. Reservations for picnic areas can be made through the Sacramento County Regional Parks website. As we walk east along the trail, we see 3 different large rock monuments with plaques honoring important people in Parkway history. This plaque honors William B. Pond, for whom this recreation area was named. He was the first director of the Department of Parks and Recreation for Sacramento County and is known as the father of the Parkway. Directly across the trail is a popular cycling rest and meeting spot with water fountain, benches, and restroom. Another plaque honors Eppie's great race. Eppie Johnson, a Sacramento restaurateur, started a triathlon featuring running, biking, and kayaking or canoeing down the river. This race raised thousands of dollars over the years for children's charities. If you take one of several trails that head off to the right and follow the river's edge, you'll approach the William B. Pond clay banks, just downstream from the bike bridge. This is a popular spot for locals to watch wildlife and boaters or just enjoy the water on hot days. Mallards like these and mergansers are often spotted in the waterway, while red-shouldered hawks and osprey are overhead.
Now we will bring you back to a view of Arden Pond that aligns with the draft map in the Natural Resources Management Plan for the Arden Bar area. The big yellow polygon in the middle of this map is a component of proposed mitigation that would offset impacts from the Army Corps of Engineers bank protection projects within the parkway. This mitigation project would construct shallow water fish habitat for juvenile salmon, a berm to separate the restored Arden Pond from the adjacent bass pond, and planting of vegetation to create shaded riverine aquatic habitat. The draft supplemental environmental document for this site is scheduled to be available this winter for public comment. And the dark blue areas on this map are additional opportunities for salmon habitat restoration that are being evaluated by the Water Forum. Okay, and do we have any questions or comments? Okay, seeing and hearing none, we will continue. As we carry on downriver, I hope you all enjoyed learning about a few opportunities in the River Bend and Arden Bar areas. Harrington access is on our right, which marks the end of Arden Bar and the start of the Sarah area, which gets its name from the Save the American River Association, a grassroots nonprofit that started in 1961 to spearhead the establishment of the American River Parkway. On the right, you can see the paved bike trail winding through the parkway. This is also a good view of the federal levee system that borders both sides of the parkway from Arden Bar down to Discovery Park. This will be a common site for the next several area plans, with the river taking up most of the parkway and a relatively narrow band of land and habitat on the river side of the levees. There are a few opportunities identified for the Sarah area, mainly between the paved bike trail and the river. These include 3 salmon rearing habitat projects in blue and 2 bank protection mitigation projects in yellow. We are now approaching the Howe Avenue area, where there are a series of bank protection projects being planned, which you can see on this map in the orange crosshatch polygons. There are also a few opportunities for salmon rearing habitat projects on the left, one that spans both sides of the Howe Avenue Bridge, and a second site located just beyond a prominent island up ahead. As we fly over this island, we'll get a great bird's eye view of the riparian habitat and its canopy. If you look closely on the left, you will see a side channel through the canopy, and that is where the long continuous salmon rearing habitat project site is proposed, and that continues beyond the utility lines that cross the river up ahead and to the next island just before the Howe Avenue Bridge. On this map of the approaching Howe Avenue area, you can see that the island up ahead may be pushed to the side to stabilize the right bank, while also improving the conveyance of floodwater through this area. And on the left is that long linear rearing habitat project that started in the Watt area. All right, any questions or comments for that stretch of river? Okay, seeing none. Up ahead is the EA Fairbairn water treatment plant that is owned and operated by the City of Sacramento and is designed to treat up to 200 million gallons of water per day. Just beyond this water treatment plant is the Guy West Bridge, the second of 2 pedestrian bridges that cross the river in the middle reach of the parkway and is the gateway to Sacramento State from the north side of the river. The Campus Commons area has a few opportunities for bank protection and salmon rearing habitat that you can see on this map. The rearing habitat site begins back at Howe Avenue on River Left and terminates before the water treatment plant. And the bank protection project begins upriver from the Guy West Bridge and continues along the right river bank all the way to the far end of the Campus Commons golf course. Up ahead, you will notice that the river channel becomes quite narrow as we enter the Paradise Beach area on the left. On our right is the Campus Commons area, home of the Campus Commons Golf Course. Immediately on our left is one of 2 bank protection sites for Paradise Beach. This upstream site is the highest ranked site in the parkway due to the nature of its very narrow channel and heightened water velocities that are chewing away at the banks on the left side. The 2 bank protection sites on this map are being reviewed under the Corps' Contracts 2 and 3 for the American River Common Features Project, and construction for the upstream site is expected in 2022. The Cal Expo area is characterized by its very broad floodplain and a few prominent features, such as the corridor of transmission towers, dirt maintenance roads that also served as the off-paved trail cycling pilot program, which was tested over the last 3 years, as well as a site known as Bushy Lake that is located at the toe of the levee that separates the Cal Expo Fairgrounds from the floodplain. The Cal Expo area is one of the few sites in the parkway that is not owned by Sacramento County and is owned by the state of California. However, the county does manage this area for Cal Expo. Dr. Michelle Stevens, a Sacramento State professor, will introduce us to Bushy Lake and her pursuit in restoring a sustainable and resilient ecosystem here.
Hello. Thank you for joining us today for a virtual tour of the magic of Bushy Lake. My name is Michelle Stevens, and I'm a professor in environmental studies at Sacramento State. I've been a wetlands and restoration ecologist for 30 years, and my background is in ethnoecology. I'm a tribal descendant of the Nez Perce tribe, and I've worked with the Miwok people for 20 years. Lexi Von Ehrenkrook is my student intern. I would like to thank Kara Allen, project manager for the Wildlife Conservation Board, and Nathan Dietrich, Associate Vice President, Sacramento State Public Affairs and Advocacy, for their support and encouragement. This is the boundary for the Bushy Lake Conceptual Restoration Plan, part of the Cal Expo reach of the Lower American River Parkway. Sacramento State has been actively engaged in restoration on the east or right side of the map where the squiggly line is. Bushy Lake is owned by Cal Expo and co-managed by Sacramento County Parks. It's established by the Bushy Lake Preservation Act of 1976 by the Save the American River Association and is now a state nature preserve. Sacramento State began working at Bushy Lake in 2015 through participation in the Ecological Society of America Earth Stewardship Initiative Post-Burn Demonstration Project to create a fire-resilient landscape on the Lower American River with Yale University, UC Davis, Sacramento County Parks Department, and the American River Parkway Foundation. Bushy Lake provides a living lab and game changer on the Lower American River. Over 500 Sacramento State students have helped with restoration, adaptive management, community engagement, citizen science, and community service. We have had local high school and middle school students and the general public participating in restoration activities. We are engaged in undergraduate and graduate student applied research. Also involved are the Sacramento State Sustainability and NSF-funded Sustainable Interdisciplinary Research to Inspire Undergraduate Success Project River Science Program. These are some images of activities at Bushy Lake with students. Stage 1 of our project occurred over the last 5 years, where we restored approximately 5 acres of plants like whiteroot, creeping wild rye, and mugwort. You can see from the lower left-hand slide that the whole site was burned when we started in 2015. These native plants that we have chosen have dense below-ground rhizomes and roots, which makes them resilient to fire. Stage 2, where we are at right now, we're conducting more pollinator experiments and other culturally important forbs and grasses. Classes are actively engaged in these experiments. Weismer won the highest performing undergraduate student of all 23 CSUS campuses in 2019, showing that there is some robustness and merit to our student faculty research. Whenever we see river otters at the site, which is fairly frequently, there's always a sense of magic and wonder. Also providing lots of magic are all the birds on our site. We have quite high bird diversity as they move through the cycle of seasons at Bushy Lake. Dan Williams, Sacramento Audubon, has conducted continuous avian point count surveys since February 1st, 2020, and has recorded over 120 bird species. He says the avian diversity of Bushy Lake is truly astounding, and surveys throughout the year have shown how many different birds use the area in many different ways as the seasons progress. We have nesting red-shouldered hawks, red-tailed hawks, and other raptors like an osprey moving through the site periodically. The northern flicker is important culturally for its rusty red feathers for ceremonial flicka headbands and other dance regalia. These are some of the beautiful birds that Dan Williams has taken pictures of moving through this site. These are the birds that we see every time we go out that greet us, the ospreys and egrets and magpies. We have had some challenges at Bushy Lake. It's a very porous site, so people come and go. We've had threat of burning, flooding up to the levees at Cal Expo, drought, invasive plants and animals. And the biggest problem is really homeless people camping and trash in there, keeping our students and researchers safe. And they do steal or destroy our scientific sampling equipment. We had a big event in 2016 with over 200 people and county supervisors. We plan to do another big event through this grant in 2023, and we hope you'll all come. The Bushy Lake Conceptual Restoration Plan goals are threefold. One, to understand, protect, enhance, and restore habitat refugia for western pond turtles. Two, to provide ecocultural restoration and fire-resilient habitats for native plants, animals, and pollinators. And three is public and stakeholder outreach and education. The more we study Bushy Lake doing adaptive restoration, the more we discover, the more we come to understand that this area provides significant native plant and wildlife habitat for the Lower American River. We have surprises like the beavers that are coming into the site and acting as ecosystem engineers. This site also provides a template for applied scientific studies, conservation, restoration, and education activities along the river to share with partners, the communities, and stakeholders for overall restoration success and a sense of tranquility, beauty, and wonder for the Lower American River. Our first goal is western pond turtle conservation. When we first observed the turtles, I thought they were all western pond turtles. However, Laura Patterson of the California Department of Fish and Wildlife Service and Jeff Alvarez helped us identify the turtles more accurately, and we realized most of the turtles at Bushy Lake were invasive red-eared sliders. Unfortunately, the invasive turtles are competing with the pond turtles by approximately 80%. The pond turtle is the only native freshwater turtle left in California and is designated a species of special concern by the California Department of Fish and Wildlife. Western pond turtles are also currently listed as an endangered species in the state of Washington. In 1992, the pond turtle was petitioned for listing under the Federal Endangered Species Act. Ongoing drought, elimination of habitat, degradation, and fragmentation of wetland and aquatic habitats and invasive species continue to adversely impact and raise concerns about California's sustainable native turtle populations. Our goals for this western pond turtle restoration are to continue to conduct studies on western pond turtle biology, to evaluate the invasive species, design key habitat elements for successful turtle reproduction and conservation, and to design a public education plan. On the right are western pond turtles. Upper right is Sparky number 1, and on the right is a western pond turtle on our data form. These are adult Western pond turtles. The turtle study includes visual surveys, monthly live trapping, mark recapture and release, nesting surveys, which we will intensify this spring. We've created artificial basking sites and put wildlife cameras out so we can survey the turtle biology without disturbance. In the future, we would like to use telemetry to determine turtle movements between the American River and Bushy Lake. These are pictures of nesting Western pond turtles. In the center, you can see the mother turtle laying her eggs. First, she pees on the soil to moisten it, and then she digs a hole with her hind legs. In this picture, she's depositing her egg. On the left, you see a disturbed Western pond turtle nest from Bushy Lake. The hole is about the size of the finished hole, and then on the upper left is a plug that the mother turtle puts over the hole after she lays her eggs and finishes nesting. On the upper right is a red-eared slider nest. All the nests we found were preyed upon by skunks. With that pea smell, it's easy to locate these nests, and the skunks kind of roll up the eggs like little tamales. This is a picture of babies in a turtle nest, and they first have an egg yolk sac that they absorb, and then they keep moving to the top of this little bunch of turtles and wearing away the top of the soil. These tiny little vulnerable turtles are very soft. They're only the size of a $50, and somehow they have to make it from this hole clear down from the upland area to the waters without getting eaten or preyed upon. Baby Turtles by Jeff Alvarez. I've never seen a baby turtle. This is our sampling protocol for turtles at Bushy Lake with a picture of our live trapping of turtles and then our basking platforms. At this point, I'd like to invite you to engage in our video to see what we do out on the beautiful, magical Bushy Lake. These are pictures of the invasive turtles at Bushy Lake. As I said, there's about 80% invasive turtles, including yellow-bellied sliders, red-eared sliders, and this peninsular cooter is from Florida. If you notice, it has teeth and can get up to 30 pounds. Ultimately, we may have to remove these turtles and find forever homes for them. We will not be destroying or killing turtles in Bushy Lake. Goal 2 In this part of the research and conceptual restoration plan, we're going to conduct ecological studies and design our draft and final conceptual restoration plan for fire resilient and culturally significant native plants. First, we'll characterize the hydrology, then we'll continue monitoring and planting and conducting research on our pilot restoration project. We have an aquatic team characterizing the habitat and water quality. And last, ecosystem engineers, the magic of beavers. The hydrologic characterization will characterize surface water flow and conditions between Bushy Lake and the American River, which, as you can imagine, is pretty vital for a successful conceptual restoration plan. The objectives of the hydrologic assessment by Dr. Kevin Cornwell and his graduate students is to clarify land surface drainage conditions, determine surface water elevations through land surveying at Bushy Lake and the American River, assess the surface and subsurface connection with the American River, determine how Bushy Lake responds to upstream dam releases, and determine the rate of inflow into Bushy Lake from groundwater pumping from Cal Expo. This shows you the project area that we fly over with drones. Getting a drone license is like an entry-level airplane license. And with the utility corridor, you can imagine it takes some permits and some skill to conduct this kind of flight. This image shows where aerial photos have been taken in the zones that include the lake and the northeast part of the study site. This represents several hundred photos that will be processed, sewn together. Elevation values determined using AggieSoft software. This is a 3D rendering of the geographic location and altitudes displayed prior to processing. These will all be sewn together and creating a model which we will construct surface maps from for the hydrologic assessment of Bushy Lake. Ecocultural restoration by resilient native habitat piece is ongoing by Dr. Stevens at Sacramento State. Plant species selection is focused on showcasing Native American cultural knowledge and ethnobotany. A few culturally significant plants on the Lower American River include whiteroot or Carex barbarae for baskets in the material culture. Willows, hazelnut, and redwood grow on this site, and they're also important for baskets in the material culture and habitat. Fiber plants, milkweed, and Indian hemp are important for fish lines, regalia, and to support pollinators. Tule reeds for material culture. And we've been planting a lot of grass forbs and geophytes that are important for food and medicine for native cultures, as well as sacred pollinator plants. On the right, you see the remnant vegetation remaining in the Sacramento-San Joaquin Delta. Our goal at Bushy Lake is to provide a reference template of native vegetation for the American River watershed. I did my doctorate on Carex barbarae. Long below-ground rhizomes provide resiliency in the case of fire. They provide streambank protection from erosion, water quality improvement, and it's ethnobotanically the most important plant in the area for basket weaving. These are culturally important plants: milkweed, elderberry, Indian hemp. This is native plants restored at Bushy Lake with yarrow, gumweed, and mugwort. The aquatic team, Dr. Jamie Nightel, Hannah Savage, Dr. Tim Davidson, and Carla Cruz Medina, monitoring water quality in aquatic habitat. Preliminary results indicate that water quality has very high phosphorus levels, turbidity, and eutrophic anoxic conditions near the inlet of the Bushy Lake in the same area where the resident western pond turtles reside. The water inlet is used by homeless for bathing, garbage, and other issues, and that's where the pollution is coming from. The Aquatic Food Web includes invasive red swamp crayfish, bullfrogs, and catfish. Bullfrogs and catfish are predators on young turtles. Here's the aquatic team out. Here's catfish, bullfrog, tadpoles, and red swamp crayfish. Last, I wanted to talk to you about the beavers at Bushy Lake, ecosystem engineers enhancing habitat. Beavers first appeared at Bushy Lake 2 years ago. They now have 2 lodges and are in the process of building a new structure. The lodges and beeways have created habitat complexity, interspersion of habitat types, increased biodiversity, and provided a myriad of habitat niches for many species of wildlife and native plants. I call these beeways. I'm not quite sure what beaver biologists call them, but these waterways improve habitat for turtles through increasing structural diversity and basking sites. But the turtles use these beeways. This is a nesting red-eared slider mother, and she was found. They used the beeway to go up to the upland to lay their eggs. And hypothetically, the baby turtles, as well as the mothers, can make their way back. In the last 2 weeks, the beavers have expanded their area. They seem to be really busy right now. The white root beds are a really special area with many bird species and bedding sites for a doe and 2 fawns. The beavers in the last 2 weeks cut down these trees. Then they eat the bark off the log that's down like corn on the cob. They then take pieces of wood out into the Bushy Lake area and are creating a construction area. This is the beaver on the lower right is the beavers' new lodge that they're constructing. Logically, beavers have moved up in Bushy Lake to the sound of running water at the inlet to Bushy Lake. They are starting to create this little lodge and doing this construction. This is the area where our resident western pond turtles reside. Research informs us that building these dams may improve water quality and reduce phosphorus levels, which is high. It also provides basking sites for the turtles, so the beavers seem to be functioning synergistically to improve habitat for western pond turtles and other wildlife. Our last goal and most important goal, you could say, is to develop a draft and final conceptual restoration plan. We plan to integrate this project with the Lower American River Natural Resource Management Plan and the Water Forum Habitat Group. Dr. Christine Flowers is leading our Bushy Lake Stakeholder Advisory Committee so we can get input and advice and collaboration with you, the stakeholders. Every year we have an annual Earth Day event for the public, which will depend on COVID, but we do plan on having a big public event in spring in 2023. So I hope you'll put it on your calendar. We are in the Arden Arcade area and definitely want to increase public outreach and education to have children experience the magic and tranquility and wonder of nature at Bushy Lake. Our website is being updated and you can use the website to keep in touch with us. An important stakeholder for the Bushy Lake Conceptual Restoration Plan is the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers and Sacramento Area Flood Control Agency. The 2003 U.S. Army Corps of Engineers Ecosystem Restoration Plan was designed for the Cal Expo floodplain. We plan to align the Bushy Lake Conceptual Restoration Plan with the 2003 Ecosystem Restoration Project design for federal authorization funding for ecosystem restoration work. I'd like to conclude with an exciting piece of information. We have in-house work on successful restoration of western pond turtles, the only case study that I know of. This is in Pittsburgh, California, and it's a western pond turtle enhancement project at the Mountain View Sanitary District. Successful restoration site for Bushy Lake to draw upon. The turtles are reproducing, laying eggs. They're doing well. They've constructed islands for western pond turtles basking and water quality improvement and education. I'm very proud of our Bushy Lake team. We have an amazing group of collaborators and we hope you will join us in our efforts. We depend on stakeholders, on your knowledge. We can't do it ourselves. We really want to collaborate with other stakeholders and organizations on the Lower American River, especially the Save the American River Association, who has done so much to create this magical place. Please come and visit us and experience the magic of Bushy Lake. Thank you so very much.
Before we take a moment for questions and comments, I want to share the draft map for the Cal Expo area. On this map, you will see a large ecosystem restoration opportunity in green that was scoped by the Army Corps of Engineers back in 2003, and there is also a salmon rearing habitat opportunity in dark blue along the riverbank. This map also shows the Bushy Lake Conceptual Restoration Planning Area, which is the polygon with diagonal lines, and the gray band that bisects the floodplain is the easement right-of-way for the transmission lines. And with that, we'll pause here for any questions and comments you might have going back to the Howe Avenue area. Okay, well, I think I saw Supervisor Cerna's hand go up.
Yes, thank you. The video of Bushy Lake is very impressive, and I've been out there myself to see all the great work that's being conducted, and was there in 2016 for the event that was referenced. I guess what I would like to do without putting too much pressure on her unannounced is ask our Parks Director, Liz Bellis, what we're doing that's very surgical in terms of protecting or attempting to protect as best we can the Bushy Lake area from the impacts of illegal habitation out there and dumping of trash and all the other impacts that were noted in the video. And because it's because we're being tasked to do this on behalf of the state for Cal Expo, is there something that we are not doing but we should be in terms of acquiring resources from the state of California to do a better job? Because I think we can all agree that we're all impressed with the great work that's going on out there, but the travesty is obviously that we're seeing the impacts of those encampments affect not just the habitat of the American River Parkway, but in this case, the ability to enhance the habitat and hopefully help inspire a better future for the Parkway. So, excuse me. So I'd like to hear from Liz about what we're doing and what we should be doing better. Thank you.
Sure. I will tackle that one. So the answer during COVID is different than the answer pre-COVID. So as you are aware, our public health order has dictated that we leave encampments in place unless they are a public safety hazard. Pre-COVID and post-COVID, we were looking at encampments, and where they were degrading our natural environment, we were able to basically post them for a notice to vacate and then clean them up. And I believe we were making some great progress prior to COVID, and I look forward to the time when we can do that again. As far as other things that we can do, we're looking at some recommendations that will be included in our natural resources management plan as far as best management practices. And for the management opportunity with Cal Expo and the state, the management agreement that we have with Cal Expo is expired. We've made a couple of runs at putting together a new agreement, and we have not been able to get that completely off the ground, but it is on my list of things that need to be accomplished. Hopefully that helps to answer some of your questions.
It does. I appreciate it. Given the fact that that agreement is expired, does that mean that I don't know the details of the agreement, first of all, but did the agreement prior to expiration stipulate what contributions, resources, reimbursements, payments the state would make to help us with the effort to protect that part of the parkway?
We are not, have not been in receipt of payment for our service of operating the park. Part of the agreement, they pay for some of the water being pumped into Bushy Lake, but there is not it is not a source of funding for operations for us.
Well, I think given the fact that the agreement's expired and we're hoping to resurrect a new one, I think it's probably high time we introduce that question or that opportunity into an agreement that is essentially, taking care of their owned lands within the parkway, and I'm going to guess at significant cost to us, again, pre and post COVID, but I don't know that that's entirely fair that the taxpayers of Sacramento County are being expected to take care of the state's part of the parkway, without any reimbursement here, and especially given the fact that I would argue that part around Bushy Lake in particular needs enhanced protection. So I'm very interested, as the supervisor representing that portion, see something like that happen. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Cerna and Director Bellis. And I think Rich O'Neill has your hand up. Do you have any questions or comments?
I did. The previous speaker addressed the same question that I had in regard to what do you do with the homeless encampments and the garbage and lack of hygiene facilities, etc. It's just a real problem. But I didn't realize that the COVID made the difference too. The rules changed. So thank you. I think my question was answered.
Okay, and Professor Stevens, I think I saw your hand up.
I did want to say that the parks we have a ranger steward. I had their cell phone number, and so if we had problems even on a weekend, they would send people out right away. So I do appreciate having I call them our knights in shining armor, ranger stewards. It is unfortunate that right now the water's down. This morning I was out there and there's a young spiky horned buck and he's drowned in the mud. He couldn't get out of the mud because the water's so low and he drowned. So that was very, very sad from this morning. So.
I would just like to acknowledge we have two more committee members that have joined us, came on during the presentation, Corey Brown and then our committee chairman, Jeff Harris. So welcome, committee members. And I think Corey had his hand up as well for a comment or question.
Thanks, John, and thanks, Dr. Stevens, for your presentation and Sacramento State's leadership on this. It's very, very promising. It was very good to see that the work you're doing on Bushy Lake is coordinated both with the Natural Resources Management Plan and the Army Corps of Engineers Cal Expo restoration program. Realizing that we're a little period of time before federal funding could come in for the federal part of the restoration program. I wanted to find out from your perspective, when do you think the plans are going to be sufficiently ready that we'll be in a position working with our congressional delegation to go after federal funding and potentially Conservancy funding to implement the restoration programs? With the Great American Outdoors Act, there's more money available at the federal level. And so just want to get a sense of timing as to when the project will be ready for more funding to expand the restoration effort.
Is that directed at me or you, Kara?
I think that was it, you, Professor Stevens.
Okay. We're working with stakeholders with the Corps and SAFECA. Our conceptual restoration plan will be due in spring of 2023, and we'll do everything we can to network and combine the two plans along the way, so we have something ready to be funded by June of 2023.
Thank you.
Okay, and I think there's no other hands up. Corey, if you wouldn't mind lowering your hand, thank you very much. And yeah, if there's no other questions or comments, then we will carry on with our tour. As we approach the river, the bank on river left is the lower bank protection site that we saw on the Paradise Beach map and is expected to be evaluated under the Corps' Contract 3 for the American River Common Features Project. The environmental document for this site is expected to be released by the end of 2021 for public comment. As we gear up for our last presentation, we'll head over to the land portion of the Wood Lake area and follow a short stretch of maintenance road that is part of the off-paved trail cycling pilot program. This maintenance road follows the perimeter of this vast open area that makes up a good portion of the Wood Lake area. And like the Cal Expo area, the overhead transmission lines and towers have a very large presence here and also limit the types of vegetation that can grow within the utility easement right-of-way. As we look over one of two area plans that make up the off-paved trail cycling pilot program, we will pause here and turn it over to Bob Horowitz with Fat Track, the Folsom Auburn Trail Riders Action Coalition, for a presentation on this pilot program.
Okay, well, thank you, Kara, for getting me on the agenda today, and to all the advisory committee members and all the other people here who are volunteering their time and efforts for the Parkway. Kara wanted me to speak because we just weren't sure how many of you are really aware of the MTB pilot program. And so today I'll give you a brief history of the program. We'll have a ground level look at some of the trails and an assessment of the program so far, and then my opinions maybe on what is needed to improve the program and activate this area of the Parkway. Advance. So it mentioned that I was a member of the Update Citizens Advisory Committee, and so that was formed to advise county parks, the management and the staff on some of the contentious issues that included an off-leash dog park, Native American Cultural Center, light rail crossing, soil-borne farms, proposals by the city of Rancho Cordova, and of course off-pavement bicycling. And there were 23 members, including reps for each county supervisor and city councils, assortment of local environmental groups, and some recreational groups. And I think I put a star next to that because we started with 23 members, but we finished with about 20. And then on December 6th of 2005, we voted 16-4 in favor of the off-pavement bicycling pilot program. And that was kind of a big deal. And then 9 years later, we actually implemented the program, and that ran for about 3 years until this fall. And then in October, just a couple of months ago, we voted to, the County Recreation and Parks Committee voted to extend, to begin work to extend the program indefinitely. Next. So here's some of the language from the 2008 American River Parkway Plan on bicycle use. You can find that in your Parkway Plan if you have a printed version, the dog-eared version like mine, 5.16, 5.17. And advance. And some more from the Parkway plan. These are the specific conditions by which the off-pavement cycling pilot program was able to operate. And then 5.17.1 allows the county to potentially expand the pilot program to other areas. Advance. Here's the pilot program map. And so what we're looking at here, this is roughly river miles 2 through 6. And the purple dashed lines are the MTV pilot program. The yellow line is the paved Jedediah Smith bike trail. The orange line, a little tougher to see, is the equestrian trail. And then there's a pink line kind of on the left-hand side of the screen that is a pedestrian trail over in Wood Lake that doesn't get a lot of pedestrian traffic other than people who are living there. A little bit sketchy there. So for our virtual tour, we're going to start up on the lower right near number 6, and then we will work our way downstream up to number 3 on this map. But one thing I do want you to notice, if you can see it well enough, is that the pilot program doesn't ever get very close to the river. So when the Parkway Plan talks about recreational activities that are enhanced by the river, that would be fantastic, and we would like that. But that is not currently what we really have. Advance. So here we have now, we're going to start on the upper corner at A, and this is the end of Ethan Way. And if this was a bigger, better photo, you would actually notice you can see the downtown Sacramento skyline from here. So it's one of the few places where you really can see the skyline, which is kind of cool. And then you're obviously seeing, and we saw this on the video, a lot of power towers, high voltage power lines. So if you don't like power lines, you may not like our program here. But anyway, it's a good place to start up here at A. And a little piece of trivia is that I counted all the power towers probably about 15 years ago. There were more than 70 of them. Of course, I don't remember the exact number. The trail, as you can see in D, does get very sandy in the summer. Sun and sand are much less of an issue in the winter. You can see not much shade out here, pretty darn hot, not very pleasant in the summer. Winter time is the best time to ride down here. Advance. So now we have the transition zone. That's what I call it anyway. It's got a little bit more tree cover, but it's been really heavily impacted by illegal encampment over the past couple of years. The ranger patrols did increase for a while, and that pushed the campers kind of farther back there. And so now we have some, trash in sort of areas that used to be a little bit cleaner. Photo A is looking back toward Cal Expo. B and C, we're kind of taken pretty close together. And I'm going to call your attention in C to the gully there. And my friend who's standing in the bottom of that gully is 6'5", just as a reference point. So it's very deep. And because this area collapsed in the El Nino winter a few years ago, there used to be sort of a way across. There's no way across anymore. Total cutoff of these two areas. And we'll see that again. I'll talk about that later. Advanced. Okay, so now we're in Wood Lake, and photo A is taken right near that bathroom and porta potty and kiosk, which is sort of an underutilized access point that connects the Wood Lake neighborhood. I marked that in the map with a purple P. There's a small amount of parking. Outside that area recently, the neighborhood's actually improved. There's a senior living center and a behavioral hospital. But when I meet folks out there, I usually drive up the road to the right to REI and Costco and leave a car there. Point B is the other side of that culvert over there. And so the trail kind of makes this 60-degree turn. And what you see in the photo for B, if you could tell what that is, it's a big old piece of glass. And it's pretty easy to blame that on illegal encampments, but I actually think in this area, there's a lot of glass pushing up through the ground, and it's historic 100-year-old glass that, you know, when the area was first being settled, there were various dumps and borrowing to build levees. And so we have this legacy of stuff in the ground that pushes up. Some of it's really thick, and it'll definitely give you a flat tire. C is the radio towers, which you might have seen in the video. There's actually 3 very tall towers there. And in D, in that area is sort of the best riverside trail. It's a little bit sketchy right now. Along that transect of B to D on the map, there's a lot of really good opportunities for things like riparian restoration, forest restoration, wetland creation, and all kinds of what I would call soil carbon or carbon sequestering, because this is an area that's had a lot of fire damage over the last 10 years and has been significantly degraded. And so there's a ton of opportunity. I know Corey was asking about federal money. I think there is state climate CCI money that is also available for riparian restoration, which carries a pretty good climate punch. So quite a bit that could be done out in this area. I think we could even potentially use flooding, you know, to reduce access to certain areas. But let's move along. So after the pilot program was approved, people thought there was a big threat from this program. So the county hired an environmental consultant, and they took a lot of measurements of trail widths and plant communities to see what would be the impacts of the program. And this slide gives the highlights of what was found or not found. From my own vantage point, I think it is very challenging to determine impacts from bike activity in an area that's pretty much overrun with illegal camping. So informal trails, campsites come and go, and that has by far the greatest impact. If we go to our next slide, how do cyclists feel about the pilot program? And I'm not going to sugarcoat this. I mean, we are super grateful for everything the county has done to try and to get this thing going, you know. And folks do use the pilot program to link together longer rides and things like that. But, you know, riding on these maintenance roads is never going to be fun or popular enough to really, you know, change the dynamic down there, to you know, to bring in new visitors who don't just live nearby and like to ride. We're going to have to offer more. And if we're going to have an impact on illegal activities, we're going to have to offer a lot more. So, you know, we're basically asking cyclists to ride on bumpy, straight roads. And then we don't let people ride often in the winter time, which is the best time. So, you know, in the summer, the roads are baked up as hard as a rock or they turn to sand. You know, most of the rainstorms, you get a few puddles, we can avoid those. Wintertime is the time down here. It's green, the weather's cool, you can see who's lurking in the trees, and this is when people want to ride. Next slide. So, you know, we need to be realistic. We've seen a lot of investment on some of the earlier presentations today in the Upper Parkway, and that's fantastic. The Upper Parkway, when compared to places down here, when you compare Carmichael and Fair Oaks to what's going on in Wood Lake, there is an investment deficit there, and there isn't much reason for folks to come down there, and they don't feel safe when they do. I mean, we got 1 million people living around this area. And yet the Parkway plan and some of the decisions that were made in the plan are designed to keep people out and discourage recreation. And how long are we going to pretend that this works? You know, We can hold volunteer cleanups. We can, the county and Bill was so instrumental in getting money for ranger patrols and cleanups. And that was a phenomenal amount of money. But now that it's kind of over, it's going to come back because we haven't solved the problem. The Parkway Plan does lock our managers into a kind of limbo where, we're pretending that these places are protected, but they're not. And we do need a new vision for that. So what do we need down here? Let's move to the slide. From a cyclist perspective, we need trails that are fun for people to ride. We need to see the river. We need to be off the service roads. We need connectivity. If we're going to expand, and that is allowed in the Parkway Plan, I think the best way to go initially is down toward Discovery Park, especially if we can one day take in the Arusha property and the gravel mine. And I know this is an unpopular sentiment, but we need to concentrate these illegal campgrounds into some kind of safe zone where we can provide sanitation and other services. And we also need some more investment down in Wood Lake. There's a kayak launch in the Parkway Plan. I'd like to see that built. There have been numerous folks, including Supervisor Cerna, who have expressed a wish for another organic farm. I think it's a fantastic place for that. And then we need more plantings. We need to rebuild what is burned. We need riparian and forest restoration. All these things so important. Let's move on though. I just want to encourage people to think bigger for our parkway. And I don't know how many people recognize the photo on the lower right, but that is Redding, California. Redding. And I'm not saying we need to get Santiago Calatrava to build us a really expensive bridge, but that is a cool bridge. That's the Sundial Bridge. And if you want to see how to develop a river parkway in an urban area, I suggest everybody go up to Redding and visit Turtle Island, the museum, the playgrounds, the botanical garden, the wildlife center, and the world famous bridge. The middle of soil-borne farms, such a fantastic project. We're the farm to fork capital down here in Sacramento. We need another farm. And also you're looking at some reconstructed wetlands there. I think that we can use the water, to keep people out of sensitive areas, to fight against climate change and drought, and in general, just to make the area better. And we need a multi-use trail network. And so that photo on the left, I'm not exactly sure where it's from, but that's sort of the ideal, right? We want to be riding someplace where we can see the river and have some nice shade. So next slide. Just want to talk a little bit more about the Parkway Plan. Much of these two areas are protected areas, exception being Bushy Lake, which we saw all the fantastic things going on at Bushy Lake. All forms of trail recreation are allowed in protected areas, including bicycling. We can call them protected, but we'll never, there's no amount of resources in the world that is going to be able to keep this number of homeless people out of these areas. So we do need to be very hard-eyed about this kind of, how we designate these areas. And I think limited recreation is more appropriate for a lot of these areas, and more recreation will follow that. A little bit about, next slide. MTB groups. We love to build things. Here we are at Auburn State Recreation Area last winter before COVID hit, working on the Culvert Trail. We're not super duper good about going to meetings and stuff like that. We're better with, a handful of tools. We do provide some eyes and ears and the Parkway, and we've been relatively successful getting grants from REI to do things when we have things to do. So all good things. We want to be a part of the solution. If we're going to draw in more bikers, we're going to have to offer more. Next slide. I said I would come back to the reconnect. This is the culvert where my 6'5" friend was standing. This really cuts the pilot program in half. Not only that, it just really cuts access in this area. It's impossible to go from one area to the next. That has made the area much more attractive for campers. We need to reconnect these areas somehow. I think that is probably an area where the Conservancy could help with a grant or some money. I think, the culvert is deep but not very wide, and maybe one of those railroad bridges, which are old rail cars, might be a relatively good solution. Probably want to be able to get county maintenance vehicles and emergency vehicles through there too, and right now we can't. So I think that is an area where maybe some targeted help could really help. And that is my last slide. And I'm happy to take questions. I'm going to see if I can get back to Teams now. And were you able to hear me?
Yes, we were.
Yes.
Oh, okay, great.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks for doing that, Kara. You were great on the slides. And I talked up a storm. And I'm happy to take questions. I see a couple of, I see one comment about Sutter's Landing. Yep.
Yeah, so I think Professor Stevens has her hands up.
Okay.
First, I want to open it up first to any advisory committee members that might have any questions or comments.
Carl, I have my hand up for real. I don't know how to push the button here, so it's Don totally.
Oh, go ahead, Don.
Yeah. Just, and maybe this is for Liz. I appreciated Bob's presentation. I wanted to ask about the culvert, and again, I assume it's been identified as, and maybe, but there's a way to visit that particular location. So I'm curious, Liz, could you respond from a park standpoint?
Meaning, is it included in our unfunded deferred maintenance?
Yes.
Or
Yeah, that's a pretty fair way to. So I didn't ask it in particularly that fashion, but yeah, and if so, you got a price tag to it, and where's it on the list? If it is, that's, I guess. So I didn't want to presume.
It is not currently on our unfunded list, as you know, which is extensive. However, I have had conversations with members of the public, and we are looking at how a connectivity between that Cal Expo and Wood Lake area in that area would be beneficial. When we were first starting the pilot program, there was that connectivity, and then we had the washout. Had we not had that washout, then those trails would have been connected. So it is something that we are aware of it. We would like to pursue that, but it is not currently on our list at this point in time.
So Liz, let me ask you, if you identified a rough price tag, would it come under maintenance or repair? So, or does it require a full project EIR, blah, blah, blah? Or is this one of those things where as long as you don't leave it too long and not going back in repair, flood damage? And I'm wondering with some of the partners that we have, whether or not it would be something that we might be able to tackle that way. Again, a Conservancy might be a good source to consider too. Curious, what are you looking at to, what got washed out, and what's going to take to put something back in kind?
We do not have a price tag for that. As far as if we could complete it as a maintenance repair project versus a new project, I would have to consult with our planning and environmental review. I would like to think we would be able to do it as a repair maintenance, but I would have to confirm that.
Okay, so without getting any more deeper today, I guess I for one, and certainly this is, Supervisor Cerna's area, so he knows the area very well, but, it interests me that, again, I know we have a lot of competing lists for capital improvement and deferred maintenance and so forth, but if this would, kind of the point that Bob made when he was talking about, would improve access, but it might also help us with some of the other issues that are ancillary to this. I don't know that it would or not. It might improve access for folks who, want to take up camping down there too. But I'm just, I'm interested enough to at least know what the price tag is and whether the clearance, after you would consult with your folks. And so it might be something we could report back to us on at a later date. So.
Yes, and I'd also like to consult with my colleagues with the City of Sacramento, because I believe it connects to the City of Sacramento drainage system somewhat. So I would want to talk with them as well.
Okay, that'd be good. Okay, thanks, Liz. Thank you, Carl.
Yep, and Chair Harris, I see your hand up.
Let's see here. Yeah, thank you, Kara. Bob, hey, it's great to see you, and thanks for the presentation.
Oh, you're welcome, Chair.
Trail cycling on the American River Parkway has been contentious for many years. At the same time, there is a tremendous appetite for this type of recreation, as evidenced by the fact, and I see Dale Steele made a comment as well, we've seen people riding off of paved trails in River Park and the Sutter's Landing area since COVID hit. There are a lot of kids looking for recreation. In River Park, they actually built ramps and jumps and started tearing up the ecology of the area right around Paradise Beach. And it's become a problem. And Liz, thank you so much for working very quickly to address that. At the same time, my constituents are hanging me out to dry because they're saying, how dare you take recreation away from kids when they've got nothing else to do in the middle of this pandemic? And this is wholesome recreation, it's exercise, it's keeping their mental condition whole, and it gets them out of the house as well. So, we've got a bunch of issues that have kind of focused down to the parkway here. I think that the pilot program that Bob worked so hard to institute is a good thing overall. And I understand, Bob, completely that you're constrained to trails that are open and hot and bare. As far as the homeless problem goes, we are really just tied up because of the CDC guidelines and the county health orders and the state health orders. Basically, the homeless are untouchable at this point until we have a place to move them to. Certainly the city is working very hard to create more shelter beds so that we can start to alleviate this problem. It's very expensive, as Bob alluded to. We make very concerted efforts to pick up trash. And Phil, thank you for your efforts in that regard. Together, we programmed a bunch of money from Regional Sand to work on that problem. And the city, of course, takes on our share of the load wherever we can. And we're doing a lot, but it's never quite enough to get in front of the crest of the wave. That's a different set of issues. I guess what I'm trying to get at here is there is a very strong appetite to use the parkway for more active recreation. We have equestrian trails, and those are great. And we have a lot of hiking trails, and there's this perennial clash, between people who are restorationists and ecologists and people who are looking for recreation. I'm not sure we'll ever get past the stress of those seemingly clashing views, but I think that the pilot program has showed that they can coexist. And certainly as regards the homeless problem, more eyes in the area creates a little more safety. So I guess I'm kind of rambling here. I'm wondering if maybe Kara and John would being able to work with that gully and bridging it, would that be a program that could be funded by the Conservancy program?
It really depends, Jeff, whether or not it's like a maintenance type issue that you're trying to fix, or is it a long-term capital outlay project that can eliminate the issue in the long term? I mean, that's the way we would have to look at it. It would have to be a capital outlay project, not just a maintenance activity.
Yeah, no, I understand. Well, if you were to build a bridge, that is a capital program.
Right, yeah. And something like that definitely could.
Previously. So I guess a more focused question is building a bridge across that gully considered restoration? And maybe Corey can chime in too, whether or not that's an eligible project, because it's connectivity, it's access.
It is. It would enhance public access along the river, and that's one of the allowable uses under the program. Or the funding would be enhancement of public access, and you could actually design some restoration aspect to that public access improvement project. So you could actually probably do both.
Well, so Liz, I would say that maybe the county could, express that and create a project and present it for funding from the Parkway Conservancy.
Yes, I would agree with that, and definitely was a conversation I've had with a few members of the public regarding that particular area. I also wanted to mention that in the near future, well, sometime in 2021, we are going to be looking at a parkway-wide view of if there are other areas where we can do this off-paved trail type of activity. We would be consistent with the Parkway Plan, which right now states that would be on existing or reconfigured maintenance roads. And we will be doing robust community outreach on that to hear from the public where they would like to see something like that take place. But again, we weren't tackling that until spring of 2021.
Well, thanks for that. As I said, on the city side of the river, people are using the parkway, in an illicit manner to do off-trail biking, and it is a problem. But Bob, I wanted to ask you: can you do any outreach to the River Park area, or into the city side of the river, to let them know what the program is and encourage people to cross the river and use the proper trails for cycling?
Well, that'd be pretty hard to direct any outreach. I don't have any particular way to reach River Park residents. I did one of the few times I was on Nextdoor. I found that and read up on it. And, yeah, that's really tough because you got kids, and I think Diana mentioned that early on too, in her part. Without the next generation of stakeholders for the Parkway, we've got nothing. Jeff, if you have some kind of mailing list for River Park, I would be happy to guest author a blurb about the pilot program. Be very happy to do that for you. As long as there's a perception which exists among the riding community that, that the cyclists have very little, while much smaller groups like equestrian have a trail that goes the length of the parkway, there's always going to be a little illegal riding, and it's awfully hard to control. So I just want to continue to try and make the legal part better over time. The bridge would help so much. I think in cahoots with that bridge, we could probably do maybe even some pond turtle restoration in that little channel if we could. I did observe that there's already a beaver dam further up in there. And I'm happy to help you out, Jeff, in any way to get out a message about the legal trails. But okay, those kids are right there, and there's no way you're going to, and even their parents are like, what, you're going to make them cross the river at, Blue Diamond? They probably won't want their kids going that way.
Well, more likely, they'd cross at Sac State, and also understand that Caltrans is going to expand the American River Bridge and put bike ped access right over to Cal Expo.
Fantastic.
So that project is upcoming. It is looking like it will happen. So I'd like to be prepared for that. Yes, I do have a way to put out the news in River Park. So let's talk offline. And
fantastic. Yeah, your comments are spot on, and appreciate them very much.
Thank you, Kara.
Yeah. Okay. Professor Stevens, do you have a question or comment?
Yeah, I have just a quick comment. Thank you, Bob, for your talk. I've been wanting to collaborate with you, so I'm glad to hear what you have to say. I just want to point out that Western pond turtles are very sensitive species, and there's a lot of animals that move back and forth between aquatic and upland habitat. And the turtles are needing the uplands for nesting, and the babies need to make their way back. We are finding turtles with pits on their shells from having been hit by bicycles. So I'm going to be really looking at that and studying it this spring. We're really going to be intensifying our research. We also are seeing a lot of illegal bike activities of people going right by Bushy Lake through when we're trying to process our turtles. One of the things we may suggest and work with your group in the future is temporal closures during nesting. And I also wanted to say that whenever I talk to the bike people, I show them the turtles, they love the turtles. So I think it's a really wonderful educational opportunity for us to collaborate. And I'm pretty sure that bike people, at least the ones who follow the rules, will want to work with us and maybe even be our advocates and educators. The homeless people are too. So thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. I love the turtles too, and we certainly wouldn't want to be running those over. They could be getting out on the paved trail as well, because there's that long slough with tons of turtles that goes right in Wood Lake, and I've seen a lot of turtles in there. And no one would knowingly hit a turtle, I would hope. And we would, I think there's a lot of opportunity in Wood Lake. If we need like a pristine area that we flood that doesn't have an existing population of especially those Florida turtles, maybe there's something in Wood Lake that, would work. There's a lot of low-lying areas and borrow and fill areas that are close to the river channel and I think have a lot of potential for restoration.
Great, thanks. I see one more hand up, Rich O'Neill. Rich.
You're on mute, Rich, if you're talking.
I'm sorry, I didn't release the mute there. There are several Class 1 bike paths along several of the rivers in California that are seeing an increase use of small motorized bicycles, electric motorized bicycles. And with that comes along larger electric bicycles. I mean, some electric bicycles can go as much as 70 miles per hour, and they've got pretty good torque. So when you start extending the usage of that particular category, and then they start going off-road, are you suggesting that it'd be okay to ride small electric bicycles or small electric motorcycles off-road in the American River Parkway?
Well, I haven't taken a position on that myself. I know it's a contentious issue within the mountain bike community. I realize there are bikes out there. I see them all the time, actually. So I'm not suggesting, but I think the roads that we have are probably okay for that. They're really not adequate. There's really no need for electric bikes on the parkway. It's pretty flat. You don't need to be very strong.
Great, thanks.
Are you seeing the increased use of electric bikes in the American River Parkway?
Am I? No, I really haven't. I see motorcycles, full-on motorcycles out there in Wood Lake and Cal Expo, but I haven't seen that many e-bikes. I see them on the paved path.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Great. Thanks, Rich, for your questions, and Bob, thank you for your presentation. I just want to be respectful of time. We're at 3 o'clock, 2:59, 3 o'clock now, and that indicates the end of our agenda, but I'd like to turn it back over to Kara and kind of wrap things up, and then we'll have some open discussion and closing comments from board members if we need to.
Okay, and I just want to mention that actually this tour was supposed to go till 4. We set aside 1 to 4 p.m. for this tour, and so yeah, just the virtual tour is supposed to close at 3 and then be open discussion until 4 if we need it. So we can follow up with any lingering questions or comments after the tour, and I will turn it back over. As we approach the home stretch of our tour, we'd like to draw your attention to the opposite side of the river. The barren field you see is part of the upper end of Sutter's Landing Regional Park, and although it is outside the parkway, its proximity does provide opportunities for the parkway. The lower end of this park includes a covered skate park, dog park, paved trail, river access, and the city's maintenance yard. And just downriver from the regional park is the Bell Marine Industrial Aggregate and Concrete Recycling Facility. And then just beyond that is an open field, and the downstream half is a site that the City of Sacramento is in the process of acquiring under the Lower American River Conservancy program. If this property is acquired, it could expand public access to the parkway, facilitate completion of the Two Rivers Bike Trail on the south side of the river, and provide opportunities for habitat restoration. We will wrap up with one last map of opportunities in the Wood Lake area, which include a few ecosystem restoration sites being considered by the Corps and salmon rearing habitat restoration along the riverbank. We'd like to give a special thanks to the California Department of Fish and Wildlife for letting us use the resources of their drone program and providing the highly skilled and trained Steve Goldman as our drone pilot. Thank you from us all at the Wildlife Conservation Board and the Advisory Committee of the Lower American River Conservancy Program.
Great, thank you, Kara. Very nice job. So that ends the formal session of our virtual tour. We have scheduled an hour for comments, questions, closing remarks, just some time to discuss anything that committee members would like to talk about. I'll turn it back over to Jeff. Now, if you kind of wanted to take the lead on that, we'll monitor hands up and questions in the chat should they come up.
Thank you, John. I appreciate it. Yeah, this was really a nice overview, and the aerial pictorials are wonderful to see how things connect and some of the issues that we're looking at on the Lower American River Parkway Conservancy program. I did want to give the committee an update about our acquisition of the Blue Diamond property, which was one of the first things funded by the Conservancy program. We're very close to a deal there, and it looks as if it's going to sail through pretty soon. The hope is to consummate a deal with Blue Diamond in January and bring it to the Wildlife Conservation Board for approval in February. I think we can meet that time frame, and this is very fulfilling for me, and I think for Corey Brown also. We've both worked hard on this project, and it looks like it's going to fly as well. This SMUD, we've been working with SMUD carefully on their piece just to the west of Blue Diamond, and it looks very promising that they will deed it to the city of Sacramento as well. So the expansion of Sutter's Landing Regional Park will be substantial, and we will have access to a very beautiful frontage on the river. I would imagine in the future there will be restoration and access programs that will come to the committee for funding. It's pretty exciting. It's a nice piece of property. There are some ecological benefits there, certainly. And Corey will probably have something to say about that as well. But I'm very encouraged and very grateful that we were able to create this Conservancy program, and want the committee members to know that it's really working. It's working well, and very excited about it. It's a privilege to be part of it, and I appreciate everybody's participation in the Conservancy program. And I also, since I got the floor here for just a second, I wanted to thank everybody at Sac State who's working on Bushy Lake. That was a fabulous presentation. So many people in Sacramento don't know really how remarkable the Parkway is. You know, a lot of people do, but then there are a lot of people who really haven't experienced it. And that's, again, I think the value of the Conservancy program, because we can help with these restoration projects and also encourage people to access the Parkway. That's a two-edged sword, of course, because a lot of use means, you know, some potential damage to the Parkway. But I think that we can manage that and mitigate it for it. But overall, I think that the Parkway will be greatly enhanced with the committee and the Conservancy program. All right, thank you, John. Thank you, Kara.
I see Corey. Corey, you have your hand up.
Yes, John, thank you. And first, I want to also commend Kara and everybody who contributed to the presentation today. It's a great innovative use of this COVID-19 time to actually provide an enhanced presentation. We're going to see a lot more. It's always wonderful being out and walking on the sites, but the aerial images are just tremendously helpful. I thought that it may be useful to build upon this and get aerial images of the extent of the Parkway. It can be very useful for looking to see what changes are over the Parkway over time. It could also be helpful as we look at different funding proposals, that those aerial images can be very helpful to understand the context in which projects are proposed. Second, I want to thank Jeff for his leadership on Sutter's Landing Park and the Blue Diamond property, and for this Conservancy Advisory Committee and WCB's work to provide funding for that acquisition. I think that can greatly expand public use, habitat, and access, and can be very exciting. Finally, I just want to mention that Senator Portantino introduced this week SB 45, which is the Wildfire Prevention's Safe Drinking Water Bond Act. It does include $30 million for the Lower American River Conservancy Program. That's Senate Bill 5, and it's now on the legislature's internet website. So I'll send a copy of that to Kara to share a link to Conservancy board members. But thank you so much. I thought this was a very good presentation.
Great, thanks, Corey. Stephen Green.
Thank you. Kara, I want to say I really liked what you did here. This is really an outstanding presentation. I'm just very pleased. And I'm particularly grateful that you featured the Cassis property. I hope that we're able to acquire that 20 acres in the floodplain for the Parkway. In addition to being such a valuable ecosystem, there are artifacts there. Last time I was there, I found a pestle, which is a piece of granite rock that Native Americans used to grind acorns. And I put the pestle back where I found it. Anyway, thank you.
You're welcome.
Great, thanks, Stephen. All right, I don't see any more hands raised.
Actually, I do, John. Cassie
Okay.
Gilson has her hand up.
Great.
Thanks, John and Kara. I just want to echo everyone and say a big thank you for putting this together. It was really enjoyable and helpful. You know, I think you do gain some things from the aerial shots and sort of flying down the river in this way. And then put an exclamation point on Corey's notation of the bond funding. Corey, I really look forward to working with you to advance that and hopefully bring in some more resources to effectuate some of the great projects that we heard about today. So thank you again to everybody at Wildlife for the tremendous work on this.
Great, thanks, Cassie.
Thank you, Cassie. Okay, and there's one more hand up, Rich O'Neill.
Hello. Yeah, your virtual tour was very good, very helpful to me, and I had a question regarding when you set up a conservancy program using an assembly bill, does that force you to have board members who may not necessarily want to follow your mission statement? For example, developers and landowners. I don't mean to pick on them, but sometimes they don't have the same following toward a mission statement such as American River Parkway has.
If I understand your question, no, the Conservancy enabling legislation that created the Conservancy program actually establishes the makeup of the board and the committee. So that's done through legislation. And you know, the Conservancy program was put into place to bring all the constituents together to try to bring back forward the best possible work for the Lower American River, and do that in a concise and compromise and partnership way. So we're not looking to outdo some other organization or outdo some other constituent in the parkway. We want to do it as a one parkway. And that's the spirit of the Conservancy program that was built and that we're building today. We're not taking sides. We don't want to take sides. We want to do it consistent with the Enabling Act, consistent with Wildlife Conservation Board's mission and goals and objectives, but then do it in such a way that everybody is happy with the way we're moving forward.
And you know what, I'll expand on that a little bit. So Rich, just in case you're not familiar with what the legislation says about this program. So, WCB, we administer the program. And then in our board, of the voting members of the Wildlife Conservation Board actually approve the projects for funding that are presented to them. And then we have the advisory committee, which is made up of representatives from the city of Sacramento, the city of Rancho Cordova, Sacramento County, as well as 3 state agencies. And then we have members from the public, like Corey Brown and Cassie Gilson, who have been elected by the Senate Committee on Rules and the, and the governor. And so the advisory committee is supposed to help WCB understand the conditions and opportunities within the parkway to help us select projects for funding. So there's 2 groups that really come together, and that's the advisory committee and then the board of WCB.
And those projects are brought forward at the local level. I mean, it's a local movement. It's not a state movement, even though the state has authority over the program as well as authority over the funding. But the projects, the reports, the planning, that's all done at the local level in cooperation with the cities and with the county local representatives.
Okay, I had one more question, if I may. Is the American River Parkway looking to go further upstream above Folsom Dam to enlarge it upstream above Folsom?
I don't have an answer to that question. I don't know if Corey or somebody else has an answer to that, but I do not know the answer to that question. I have not heard that. But
a lot of the lands when you get above Folsom are in El Dorado County, so that would be beyond the ability of this county of Sacramento. A portion of those lands are owned by Bureau of Land Management. Over the last couple of decades, there's been a lot of land acquisition along, especially along the South Fork of the American River, that has properties and now trails from Sound Falls Bridge upstream. That portion of the South Fork of the American River, from basically where Highway 40, Highway 49 is the second most rafted whitewater river in the country. You've got portions of the North Fork American River and the Middle Fork American River that are also popular recreation areas. But for the American River Parkway, that can't get extended beyond its current upstream terminus because you're going into a different county. Liz, correct me if I'm wrong on that, but you do have other protection efforts and a lot of protected lands in the tributaries to the Lower American River and Folsom Dam.
Okay, thank you.
And I'll clarify one point, is that again the legislation for the Lower American River Conservancy program defines the Lower American River Parkway as from Hazel Avenue downstream to the confluence with the Sacramento River. So regardless of if Sacramento County or let's say El Dorado County wants to partner and expand the American River Parkway upstream beyond Nimbus Dam, the WCB program, we couldn't invest in any of those sites because the program is sort of limited to the stretch of the river from Hazel Avenue downstream.
Yeah. And just a point of clarification, the Wildlife Conservation Board has invested significantly in the upper reaches of the American River, both on the South Fork, the Middle Fork, in a lot in cooperation with the Department of Fish and Wildlife, as well as the American River Conservancy, who operates up in that location. So we made significant investments through grants and acquisitions by the Department of Fish and Wildlife for projects up in that reach of the American River over the years.
So I'd just like to say that certainly with the Conservancy program, we got our hands full from Hazel to the confluence. That's where most of the use occurs and where most of the impacts of humans, happen along the parkway, and managing those kinds of issues, active recreation, ecological restoration. There's plenty to work on the Lower American River Parkway. So that was really the intent of the formation of the Conservancy program, and we've got a lot to do. I'd also like to say that the aerial view of the parkway is stunning, and Cara is really great. But I'd like to encourage everybody to get out on the river and experience it from the water. Corey is a master at that. I kayaked a stretch with Corey, and it was just breathtaking and a really unique view of the parkway that you just can't get any other way. So if you ever get a chance to get in a boat or a kayak and float the river, it's really worth it. It will open your eyes, and I think probably inspire a lot of ideas about how you feel about the parkway and what could be managed with it, and perhaps even some projects might come to your mind that seem pressing enough to bring to the Conservancy program.
Great. Thank you, Jeff. I don't see any other hands. Cara, do you see any other hands raised?
I do not.
Or if anybody wants to speak up that don't have their hands raised or can't figure that out, please do. I don't hear anyone, don't see anyone. So do you have any parting comments, Kara?
I just want to thank everybody for their interest in the Lower American River Parkway and for joining us today. I think there was a lot of really good comments and questions and discussions provided by a variety of people. And so I really value that. And I think that, it will help us sort of keep our eye on a few sites and see how things develop over time. So just thank you to everybody that was here today, and also to all the partners that made this tour possible. Thank you.
Great, thanks, Kara. And I just
Thank
like
you,
to
John.
echo
Thanks,
that.
Kara. Good job. Good job.
Thank you.
And just say thank you. Kara did mention, and she did put on the screen, but the support of the Fish and Wildlife staff, Steve Goldman, to help us with the drone flying. As you know, you need to be a pilot to do that. So it was pretty cool that he was able to do that. And we'll take another advisement to actually, hopefully, maybe we can aerial video the whole entire stretch at some point. We'll talk with Fish and Wildlife to see if that's a possibility, and we'll let the committee know. And I just want to shout out again to Kara, and she put a lot of work, spent a lot of time in developing this, editing the video for you all. So thanks, Kara, for that. And I think it was a job well done. And I just want to say thank you to all the committee members for joining on today, as well as the public. I think this is probably the best attended meet, not necessarily a formal meeting, but a function of the Lower American River Conservancy program. I think we had upwards of 50-something folks join on, so that was great to see, and I just hope that continues and increases into the future. I also just want to say that I hope, the last 9 months have been unprecedented for us all. I think the next few weeks to few months is going to be extremely challenging times as well. But we're going into a season that is to be a happy season and a time to spend with family and that kind of thing. But just remember that to do it safely and just relax over the next couple of months and take time that you guys need to kind of regroup. I know WCB staff is we fortunately have been able to stay well through this whole period so far. I continue to hope that we continue to do that. And coming out on the other side of going into 2021, we're just looking forward to a great year next year and great year for WCB, but also and additionally a great year for the Lower American River Conservancy program. And just want to say thanks for all the committee support this year. Looking forward to working with you all again next year. So thank you. Jeff?
Well, I appreciate your admonition to chill out and to be happy. I will certainly take that and run with it. Yeah, I want to wish everybody on the committee happy holidays. John summed it all up. It's been a stressful time, but Americans are survivors, and when our back is against the wall is often when we shine the most. We'll get through this. I know the city and the county are, we're all pretty busy working on all the issues around the COVID, the state also. The main thing is, I hope that everybody will be relatively cautious about the virus and not get sick, because it's a tough disease. I have friends who have gone through it. Happily, they came through it, but one step removed, I have lost a couple of people too. So be mindful. There's lots of ways to enjoy life to its fullest, and one of those is simply to walk on the American River Parkway. Keep distance, wear a mask, but enjoy the nature around us, because we've got a lot. Anyway, all the best to you. Happy holidays, everyone.
Great. Thank you.
Jeff.
Thanks. Take care, everyone.
Bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone. Take good. Thanks again. Good job.
Thank you.